Today, I'll examine inequalities in public access to technology, focusing on the digital divide and its broader consequences. We'll consider who has reliable access to connectivity and digital tools, who remains excluded, and the factors that create or reinforce those gaps. This issue extends beyond individual convenience. It shapes business environments, economic opportunity, social participation, and the potential for growth. By understanding where access breaks down and why, we can better recognize the challenges facing organizations, communities, and policymakers. The digital divide is the gap between people, communities, and nations that can meaningfully access information and communication technologies, and those that cannot. It is not simply about owning a device. We also need to consider whether the necessary infrastructure is available, whether people have the skills and digital literacy to use technology effectively, and whether their connection is fast, reliable, and relevant to their needs. These dimensions are often called the access divide, the usage divide, and the quality divide. This slide shows the global connectivity gap, and the contrast between urban and rural access is especially striking. 6 billion people worldwide are still offline, even though broadband reaches 96% of urban areas globally. In rural areas, meaningful broadband access falls to just 37%. This imbalance is more than a technology issue. It limits access to education, healthcare, jobs, and economic participation. The broader cost is substantial, with an estimated $450 billion in annual GDP loss, because people and communities remain disconnected. I see four interconnected drivers of digital inequality. Affordability is the first. For the poorest households, broadband can consume more than 10% of monthly income, making access financially prohibitive. Geography matters too, as rural, remote, and indigenous communities often lack reliable infrastructure. Even where devices are available, limited education and digital literacy can prevent effective use, particularly for older adults and underserved groups. Finally, language and culture shape who feels included online, since much digital content remains in English, leaving billions underrepresented. The digital divide is not only a social challenge, it is also a significant business opportunity. Expanding connectivity can open consumer markets worth trillions, while remote hiring from underserved regions can reduce talent acquisition costs. Inclusive product design adds another advantage by bringing new perspectives into the innovation process and helping companies differentiate. The broader point is that digital inclusion can strengthen both reach and performance. Companies that invest in closing the gap are positioned to access new customers, broaden their talent pools, and achieve stronger long-term revenue growth than their peers. This slide focuses on a central question: who gets left behind when access to connectivity is uneven? The pattern is clear across several groups. Low-income households, older adults, and rural communities consistently experience the lowest access rates, often because of financial, geographic, or practical barriers. The consequences extend well beyond being offline. Limited connectivity can reduce access to education, employment opportunities, and health services. Over time, these disadvantages reinforce one another, creating cycles of inequality that are increasingly difficult to break. Access is not just a technology issue, it is an opportunity issue. This slide highlights how limited technology access creates disadvantages that extend far beyond the classroom. During COVID-19, roughly 1.5 billion students experienced disruption, and those without reliable home internet often fell further behind, deepening existing achievement gaps. The consequences continue into employment, where more than 90% of jobs require some level of digital competency. Without access, people face structural barriers to workforce readiness. And for aspiring entrepreneurs, gaps in e-commerce, digital banking, and online marketing can make starting and growing a small business significantly harder. This slide outlines 4 practical ways governments are responding to digital inequality. First, they assess the problem by mapping where access is limited and identifying community needs. Next, they invest in rural broadband and public Wi-Fi to expand reliable connectivity. They also subsidize devices and low-cost service plans, helping affordability become less of a barrier. Finally, They train people through digital literacy programs and community centers. Broadband access is increasingly treated as a public utility, not a luxury. Together, these efforts address infrastructure, cost, and the skills required to participate fully online. This slide highlights how closing the digital divide requires collaboration across sectors. Technology companies are developing new ways to reach remote regions, including balloons, drones, and low-orbit satellites, through efforts such as Project Loon, Internet, Org, and Starlink. NGOs contribute by providing devices, training, and infrastructure for underserved communities. Telecom partnerships add another important layer, using subsidized plans, community networks, and spectrum sharing to extend last-mile connectivity. Together, these initiatives address the places where traditional commercial models alone may not be enough. Emerging technologies bring real promise, but they can also deepen existing inequalities. 5G, low Earth orbit satellites, AI-powered tools, and mobile-first design can expand access through faster connections, broader coverage, simpler interfaces, and devices people already use. At the same time, we need to address AI bias, automation displacement, data exploitation, and the growing speed gap between technological change and inclusion efforts. The central point is that connectivity alone is not enough. Without responsible design and equitable implementation, newly connected communities may face new forms of exclusion, surveillance, and misinformation. The key takeaway is that the digital divide is multidimensional. Access, literacy, and quality all matter. Inequality carries real economic costs, while closing the gap benefits businesses through new markets and stronger talent pipelines. Lasting digital equity requires governments, companies, and NGOs to coordinate policy, funding, and design,